There's only one man both the casinos of Las Vegas and the giants of Wall Street had to respect. A man who was a math professor, a world-class gambler, and later one of the most successful hedge fund managers in history. He didn't just play the game, he changed it forever. His name? Edward Thorp, the father of quantitative investing. And today, we'll dive into the extraordinary story of the man who beat both the dealer and the market.
Chapter 1. A Child Genius. Edward Oakley Thorp was born in 1932 in Chicago, Illinois, during the tough years of the Great Depression. From the very beginning, it was clear that Edward wasn't like other kids. While most children his age struggled with simple arithmetic, Thorp's mind seemed wired differently, sharp, curious, and relentless. One of the earliest signs of his unusual memory came when he got hold of A Child's History of England. While other kids were reading comic books, Edward was absorbing centuries of English history, battles, kings, queens, and timelines. By the age of 6, he could recall names and dates with flawless precision, astonishing adults who tested him for fun. Imagine a little boy standing in the living room, confidently rattling off the sequence of monarchs as if he had lived through it himself. But Edward's brilliance wasn't confined to books. His gift was practical, too. One day at a small neighborhood grocery store, he realized the shopkeeper had given him the wrong change. Most kids wouldn't have noticed, or would have pocketed the mistake. But Edward spoke up. The shopkeeper, impressed by this tiny boy's sharp eye and honesty, rewarded him with a free ice cream bar. It was a small moment, but it revealed two things that would define Thorp's life: his ability to spot errors and his tendency to turn knowledge into opportunity.
By the time he was just 5 years old, Edward was already in the 2nd grade. Teachers quickly noticed he absorbed lessons faster than anyone else. He wasn't disruptive or arrogant, just far ahead of the curve. While classmates labored over multiplication tables, Thorp seemed to glide through them effortlessly. His mind was always searching for patterns, hidden rules, and smarter ways of solving problems. Looking back, it's easy to see these early years as the foundation of the man he would become. The boy who memorized kings and corrected shopkeepers was the same man who would later outthink the casinos of Las Vegas and rewrite the rules of Wall Street.
Chapter 2. The Path to Academia and Las Vegas. After showing signs of brilliance as a child, Edward Thorp carried that same passion for learning into adulthood. He studied physics and chemistry before focusing on mathematics, eventually earning his Ph.D. from UCLA in 1958. By his mid-20s, he was already teaching at MIT, one of the most prestigious institutions in the world, and later at the University of California, Irvine. But Thorp wasn't just the type of professor who buried himself in abstract theorems. He was curious, restless, and constantly drawn to real-world problems where mathematics could provide unexpected answers. To him, math wasn't just a subject. It was a tool to unlock hidden rules of the universe. In the late 1950s, his restless mind stumbled upon an unlikely challenge: gambling. At the time, casinos were considered unbeatable. The phrase, "the house always wins," wasn't just a saying, it was law. But Thorp asked himself a question no one else dared. What if mathematics could shift the odds? Armed with probability theory and relentless discipline, Thorp began analyzing the game of blackjack. He ran thousands of calculations by hand, testing every possible scenario. Later, he gained access to one of the earliest IBM computers, a massive machine that filled an entire room, and used it to run simulations that no human could ever calculate alone. What he discovered was revolutionary: the system of card counting. By tracking which cards had already been played, a player could actually tilt the odds in their favor. It wasn't cheating. It was simply mathematics applied with precision. In 1962, Thorp revealed his findings to the world in his groundbreaking book, Beat the Dealer. The book was an instant sensation, climbing bestseller lists and shaking the casino industry to its core. For the first time, ordinary people believed they could beat blackjack, not with luck, but with strategy. Casinos panicked. They introduced multiple decks, shuffled more often, and banned anyone they suspected of counting cards. Security teams watched players like hawks. Yet no matter what rules they changed, the truth was out. Edward Thorp had cracked the code, and casinos would never be the same. And blackjack wasn't the only game he transformed. He joined forces with his friend Claude Shannon, the legendary father of information theory, and together they built something straight out of science fiction, the world's first wearable computer. Hidden inside a shoe, the tiny device could predict where a roulette ball would land. Long before smartphones or smartwatches, Thorp was literally walking around Las Vegas with a computer on his body, quietly outsmarting one of the most iconic casino games in history. Thorp had done the impossible. He proved that with intelligence, discipline, and mathematics, even the unbeatable casino could be beaten. But for him, Vegas was only the beginning. A much bigger game was waiting: the financial markets.
Chapter 3. From Casinos to Wall Street, the father of quantitative investing. After conquering Las Vegas, Edward Thorp was ready for a bigger game, one with higher stakes than blackjack tables and roulette wheels. The casino had been his laboratory, a place to prove that mathematics could uncover hidden advantages. But the stock market, that was the ultimate casino, where trillions of dollars moved every day, and the smartest minds in the world tried to outwit one another. By the late 1960s, Thorp was already fascinated by financial markets. He began studying stock prices the way he once studied decks of cards, searching for patterns, inefficiencies, and opportunities where probability could tip the odds. What he found was groundbreaking. Using math, statistics, and probability, Thorp realized he could build trading strategies that weren't based on gut instinct or rumors, but on cold, hard logic. In 1969, he put theory into practice by launching Princeton Newport Partners, one of the earliest hedge funds in history. Unlike most investors of the time, Thorp didn't chase hot stocks or gamble on Wall Street tips. Instead, he applied the same discipline he had mastered at the blackjack tables, measuring risk precisely, exploiting small but consistent advantages, and compounding them over time. The results were nothing short of extraordinary. Princeton Newport Partners generated steady profits year after year, without a single losing year during its 2-decade run. Imagine that. Decades of investing, and not once posting an annual loss. On Wall Street, where even the best investors stumble, Thorp had achieved the unthinkable.
His strategies laid the foundation for what we now call quantitative investing, using mathematics, algorithms, and models to guide financial decisions. Today, firms like Renaissance Technologies, Citadel, and Two Sigma manage hundreds of billions using similar principles. But back then, Thorp was pioneering in uncharted territory, decades ahead of his time. And his influence was profound. Bill Gross, later crowned the Bond King, credited Thorp as one of his inspirations. The founders of Citadel, one of the world's largest hedge funds, also studied Thorp for ideas. His 1967 book, Beat the Market, co-written with Sheen Kassouf, became a blueprint for a new era of investing, one where intellect and discipline replaced speculation and luck. Thorp had proven it once again. Whether in casinos or on Wall Street, the house didn't always have to win. With the right tools, the right mindset, and the right discipline, an individual could tilt the odds and win the biggest game of all.
Chapter 4. Admiration from Warren Buffett. When people talk about the greatest investors in history, one name always towers above the rest: Warren Buffett. Known as the Oracle of Omaha, Buffett is famous not only for his fortune, but also for his rare ability to recognize true talent. And among the few people he openly praised stands Edward Thorp. Buffett didn't just admire Thorp from afar. The two actually shared a friendship. They played bridge together, exchanging not just cards, but also ideas about probability, risk, and strategy. It made sense. Bridge is a game of patience, logic, and discipline, qualities that defined both Buffett and Thorp, in cards and in investing. But Buffett's respect went beyond friendship. He once said that Thorp was one of the very few people he admired, not only for his genius, but also for his integrity. Coming from Buffett, that was the highest seal of approval.
Their relationship reached another level when Buffett personally introduced investors to Thorp's hedge fund, Princeton Newport Partners. Think about that. The world's greatest stock picker encouraging others to trust someone else with their money. That wasn't just professional courtesy, it was proof of how much Buffett valued Thorp's intellect and honesty. To Buffett, Thorp represented something rare on Wall Street, a man who could outsmart the system without ever losing his moral compass. He showed that investing didn't have to be about greed, deception, or shortcuts. It could be about discipline, truth, and long-term thinking. That's why Buffett's admiration carries so much weight. It wasn't only about results, it was about character, and in Edward Thorp, Buffett saw a kindred spirit, a man who played the long game, never gambled recklessly, and always trusted the math.
Edward Thorp's life reads like a legend, yet every page of it is true. From a child prodigy who could memorize entire history books, to the professor who cracked blackjack, to the mathematician who quietly revolutionized Wall Street, his journey remains one of the most fascinating in the world of finance. Thorp proved something radical. Math could be a superpower. While others gambled on luck or chased emotions, he relied on logic, probability, and patience. Time and again, he showed that the numbers don't lie and that discipline beats impulse. His influence is everywhere. Casinos still live in fear of card counters, thanks to his groundbreaking work. Hedge funds worth billions run on quantitative models that trace back to his methods. And countless investors, from aspiring amateurs to Wall Street giants, still turn to his ideas for guidance. In his autobiography, A Man for All Markets, Thorp distilled his wisdom into timeless principles. Learn relentlessly. Question everything. Trust mathematics over hunches. But beyond the formulas and the money, his greatest legacy may be the mindset he left behind. That the world is full of hidden patterns waiting to be discovered by those willing to look deeper. Edward Thorp wasn't just a gambler. He wasn't just an investor. He was a pioneer, a man who turned numbers into weapons, and in doing so, proved that sometimes the smartest player really can win. So, what do you think? Was Edward Thorp the greatest gambler or the greatest investor? Maybe both. If you like this story, hit like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Here, we bring you the untold stories of the sharpest financial minds.